Anybody want to start? Assalamu alaikum. Do you hear me?
وعليكم
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. أهلا دكتور. Welcome.
أيوة.
Yeah, I don't know where brother Basim Abu Abdullah is. I don't know if he came back or yet. But
I'm not sure.
yeah. We can get started, inshallah. If anyone has a question.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, I had a question which was bothering me. We also had a discussion last week regarding, this sects in Islam. Basically, the Quran says in verse number 6159 that the Prophet ﷺ has nothing to do with the sects. And, we have different schools of thought. Obviously, of Sharia, like Hanbali, Maliki, and Shafi'i, Hanafi. And then for the Shias, in total, there's 7. And the Prophet ﷺ said you will have 73 sects, and out of which one will be right. So my question is, some of the imams, they also follow, they recommend that we should follow one school of thought. Pick up one like Hanafi, Maliki, and all that. So my question is, if you stick to the Quran, which says there should be no, sectarianism in Islam, no sects, and it's just one Islam, and then the Prophet or the predicting on the other hand that there will be 73. So there is, what should be our stance? Should we pick up one, or we just focus on what the Prophet ﷺ taught us in his 23 years of prophecy? Or should we, which is the right path to pick? Whether should we associate with one school of thought, or just do what the Prophet ﷺ did in 23 years?
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. That's a good question, and it is subject of discussion and debate all the time. First of all, those scholars, they never claimed that they what they have had is a sect. It's always the followers who come and say this is a madhab or a sect. So scholars made fatwa. They have a methodology. Each one of them has a methodology, and there are others, by the way. But as usual, who gets followers and publicity has nothing to do with who is more qualified. They say that I think Layth ibn Sa'ad or others, they were much more qualified than the 4 scholars. But they didn't have followers. They did not create followers. They did not. So we don't have a school now that is credited to them. So these scholars, they didn't have a madhab. They had an approach of coming up with a fatwa. So if I have an issue, this is how I solve it. They have the problem-solving approach, or fatwa development approach. That one of them will say, stick Quran first, and then see the hadith, and then etc. Some say qiyas, ijma', amal Ahl al-Madina, like Imam Malik gives an importance to what the people of Medina were doing, because that's what the Prophet has lived. Some people consider al-urf, which is the social norm. Some people consider masalah al-mursala, which is you can translate it today to the greater good or the common good. Unfortunately, it's the followers who made these rigid sects and then they froze them. They were not meant to be like that. And the proof is when Imam Malik was asked by the Khalifa to take his fiqh, his fatwa and his book and make it the official fiqh of the state of the Khilafah and imposed on all Muslims, Imam Malik refused. Why? Because, you know, the scholars usually, they know what they're doing. They know that this is not the religion. This is just their understanding of the religion. And they know that their effort is a human effort. So it's not perfect. So he was against, he opposed that, and it did not happen. But then you have followers who come and say, this is it. The Islam is what our Imam has came up with. Anything else is rejected. So that's the background, the historical background, to know how what we call madhahib today, they were developed. By the way, the same thing applies to books of hadith. The books of hadith, the ones who developed the books of hadith, they never claimed that their work is perfect. You can't find anywhere that Bukhari says, if you find a hadith in my book, then it is 100% authentic. And if it is not in my book, then it is not authentic. Never claimed that. It's always the followers. At his time, during his time, when he was alive, some scholars rejected some of his hadith and he was not offended. Because that's the nature of things. When you talk about the expert or the one who does the work, is different than the one who comes and memorizes. It is only the followers who came up with this very weird idea that is causing us a lot of trouble, has been causing us a lot of trouble, which is that if a hadith is in Bukhari, then you cannot even discuss it. Even though you can see that some hadith are in Bukhari, they are not in Muslim, some hadith in Muslim, they are not in Bukhari. Things were very flexible. Same thing with madhab. So having said that, the proper attitude for a believer is to be looking for what is the best, what is the most pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's something that nobody can tell for sure. We can only try. Quran says, يَهْدِ بِهِ اللَّهُ مَنِ اتَّبَعَ رِضْوَانَهُ. Those who are pursuing the Ridwan of Allah. The Ridwan, they translate it to pleasure, which I don't like it, but basically to have Allah pleased with you. Those who pursue the Ridwanullah, Allah will guide them, or will guide them with the Quran. And then in another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Those who strive in our path, meaning it's the same meaning, will guide them to our ways. Those who try to find the truth will guide them. So you have the two verses makes clear that what is required from the believer is that intention of doing your best to find what is it that Allah expects from you. What is it the option that will bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As you're doing that, you find options. Now there are two attitudes here. You can, or three, you can stick to one madhab and they make it easy on yourself. Whatever that madhab says about the issue, you adopt it. That's one option. Nothing wrong with that. As long you don't become, you don't elevate the human work and make it infallible, which is never the case. as long as you believe that. And then when you see someone, you are Maliki, you chose to be Maliki. You see someone in the masjid who chose to be Shafi or Hanbali or Hanafi. There is nothing wrong. I mean, that's very normal. These are different options, and people can choose. So that's one option, which is to stick to one madhab. Second option is to give yourself the flexibility of seeking the best. And here there is one risk that you need to avoid, which is to be shopping around. Shopping around, even though it's not really totally wrong to look for what is the easier option, but it is not the proper attitude of the believer. The proper attitude of the believer is to look for the best. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, to test you who is the best in deeds. So looking for the best, not looking for the cheapest. But we were told that the Prophet ﷺ, whenever he was given the option between two things, he chooses the easiest. So things are very flexible. As long you have the proper intention, which is you never should do, like, for example, you have two fatwa from two, like, I'm giving just practical example. For fasting, Imam Shafi'i says if you break your fasting by mistake, you continue your fasting and you don't have to make it up. I think the others also, some other, but I know that Imam Malik says no, you continue your fasting and you make it up. You make up for that day. Now, if I know that the Imam Malik fatwa is more, I'm more comfortable with it, meaning that I think that it's the best. And then I go and do the Shafi'i fatwa because it is more convenient, that's not good. That's the thing that you should avoid. That's why they say, استفتي قلبك ونفتك الناس وأفتوك. That always look for the truth and do what you feel comfortable with, meaning you feel that this is the best. So it's not appropriate to know that to keep shopping around, that somebody dealing like spouse relationship, let me find who gives me more rights than others so that I can abuse. No, that becomes bad. So shopping around, looking for the easiest is not totally wrong, as long you mix it with looking for the best. But should never, like, for example, not neglect or abandon what you know is the best option or the better option just because the other is more convenient.
So, is there any problem if we just stick to what the Prophet ﷺ said and not go and bypass the schools of thoughts and, all the fiqh schools?
No, nothing wrong. I mean, that's what they did. They did what they did is they tried to
Yeah.
study the Quran and study what the Prophet did, and then come up with an approach or methodology. And then they use that methodology to produce fatwa. So you see the point. They studied the Quran and the Prophet, the Seerah and the Sunnah, to develop a methodology of fatwa. If I'm asked the question, how should I approach it? They approach the question differently. There is a difference between the schools. They develop methodology and then they use that methodology to develop their fiqh. Got it? So what we have now, most Muslims, they don't know the methodology. They don't care to read it or to learn it. but they know the fiqh. They know that for salah, that's what this madhab says. That's for fasting, for etc. They know some of the fiqh, but they don't know how it was developed.
Right, but I mean, it will take too much time to study them, and the methodology of each and every, it will become very complicated and complex. So,
I
so
mean, there is nothing wrong with going to the Sunnah and the Prophet, the Quran, but you need some guidance. You need some mentor, because there is big difference between studying and learning and contemplation and reflection, which is highly encouraged, and between coming up with a rule, which requires some qualifications. Not anyone can go and read a verse or a hadith and then say, based on that, I think this is what I should be doing. No. When you cross that limit between reading Quran and hadith and reflecting, contemplating, trying to understand the meaning, what's the message here, extract the message, etc., that's recommended, and every Muslim should do that. But to say this halal and this haram, or in this situation, this is what I should be doing Islamically because of this verse or because of that hadith, no, that's wrong. Because the Islam is very interconnected items. They cannot be taken out of context. You can't take a verse out of context or hadith, or base a ruling or a fatwa on one hadith or one verse or a couple of them. The picture has to be seen in its totality.
So what you are saying is that in the Quran there are verses in which we can contemplate, and there are things which we cannot. I mean, we leave it to the scholars.
You contemplate on all of them, but don't make conclusions. Don't reach definitive conclusion or give fatwa to yourself or to others.
So for the pursuing the Ridwan of Allah, you said there were 3 points. One was to stick to the madhab for ease, and and the second was flexibility, don't do shopping. What was the third one? Flexibility for truth.
Both of them are flexibility, but looking for the best.
Yeah.
Or looking for the easiest, but mixing it with the best. And what you should avoid is doing something while you know that it's another better option.
So these mazhabs, schools of thoughts, they are not sects, right? The sects are something else. These mazhabs are not sects that the Prophet ﷺ warned about, that there will be 73 and only one will be on the right path. So these are all on the right path. These 7 mazhabs or whatever. In the fit part.
That hadith is questionable in terms of especially in terms of its content, because in terms of the interpretation, that people interpreted as there is only one group who's going to be saved, and everybody claimed to be that group. No, you're right. It's not. Even if that hadith is correct, even if it is authentic or correct, it means that there are some characteristics, not that some particular group. Some characteristics, if they are met and satisfied, that group is considered to be Farqa Najiyah, but not a particular Jama'ah or a particular madhab, or no.
So we need to find that out, basically, right? We need to find that out. What are those things? Because, it makes logically, I think it makes sense, this hadith, that, there's so many versions, and obviously there is only one truth. So why so many versions? Just like comparing religions, different religions are competing with Islam, but we know that Islam is the truth, and it will be the only one which will be accepted by Allah, because I mean it's subjective and objective both. Truth.
That's the nature of religion. The nature of this deen was meant from the beginning to be flexible. We made it rigid. It was meant to be flexible because it was meant to guide people and guide life in all circumstances. That's why it was designed to be very flexible. It's a guidance, it's not a law. Islam was never and should never become a rigid law. That's what the Jews have done before. A mistake was committed when they made it, they turned the religion from guidance into very strict law. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Hudan lil muttaqin, guidance. That's why very few things were specified in details in Quran. Very few things. Why? Because Quran approach is to purify the soul and the heart and enlighten the mind so that the behavior that results from these will be good, so that everybody will be policing themselves and everybody will be looking for the truth. Everybody will be trying to be the best version of themselves, etc. So from day one, that was the case. That's why Sahaba, companions, had different interpretation of different verses. Companions have different fatwas. Companions, people who lived with the Prophet ﷺ. It is later on when we froze ijtihad and we said whatever we have is good for Muslims at all times and all places. That's where we turned this religion into frozen religion, and that's why we're having hard time engaging societies and impacting societies and fulfilling the mission of Islam. Why? Because we mixed the religion with culture and with a particular culture in history or in geography. And then when we take it to a different culture, it's a foreign religion. It cannot take roots. Why? Because it's not pure religion. It's a religion mixed with the culture. Whether this culture is a culture of Arabian Peninsula nowadays or a culture from another century, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we turned universal religion into local religion, and then we tried to take it to different parts of the world and different era in its fixed form, which was very weird. So it is required from Muslims because unfortunately, we grow to be lazy in terms of thinking. And when you find a product that is ready, why should we just bother thinking? This is the Salaf has done the job for us, and they are more pious and they are better than us and they are closer to the Prophet. And therefore, there is no need for us to make any effort. Let's rely on their work. Totally wrong. SubhanAllah, it's a very ironic that Christians, they took a local religion and turned into universal. I mean, Christianity was not meant to be universal. Christianity, at least from our perspective as Muslims, it says, وَرَسُولًا إِلَى بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل. That Jesus was sent to the children of Israel. So he was like previous prophets, was meant for a particular time and particular context. But his disciples took it and turned it into universal religion. Muslims took universal religion and localized it, mixed it with the culture so that now it cannot succeed or cannot take roots in a different culture. Why? Because it must be decoupled from that culture. And then the original pure religion has to be mixed and coupled with the new culture to produce a different personality, a different. So it is not meant that an American Muslim thinks and does everything exactly like a Pakistani Muslim or Saudi Muslim. It was not meant to be like this. to the point that people even, they dress the same way. It was never meant to be like this. It was meant to for Muslims to make the effort to mesh their religion with the culture, and the process is not that complicated. You go to, in every culture there are some good elements, and the only thing you need to do is to put the stamp of Islam on them. Like you come to this culture, you find people are punctual, people have work ethics, people they take care, they exercise, they wake up early, whatever. All of these things are Islamically recommended. So you find good things, you put a stamp on them, and then you find bad things, you try to work against them, and you find things that are missing, you need to finish them or complete them. But you can't bring something that is solid shape. And every time I see like an American Muslim dressing like a Saudi, I feel sorry, wallah. You don't have to. I mean, you don't have to become a Saudi Muslim or you don't, or Afghani Muslim. You don't have to. You can just remain an American Muslim, and that's what you are supposed to be. So that people around you, they will not see this religion as a foreign religion.
So when the Quran says nothing short of Islam will be accepted on the day of judgment, and you are saying that it's for guidance, but we can change around, it's very flexible, so these two things to me sound very contradictory, because on one side Quran is saying no, you have to stick to Islam, which and that will be accepted. So is that Aqidah that Quran is talking about, and you're talking about flexibility in the fiqh area? What is the, this is a little bit confusing. It's just
no, it's not confusing. It is that Islam that is meant to be flexible. I mean, it's not, the Islam is not, no understanding of Islam should be confounded with Islam. We have to be always ready to distinguish between the Islam, the truth that we are looking for, that we're not sure, because there is no revelation anymore to tell us this is right and this is wrong. That's what has been happening at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. That's why I keep saying that anything that happened 1 minute after the death of Rasul ﷺ cannot be considered deen. Why? Because there was no Quran revealed to endorse it. It became a human effort. Because that's the big difference between when Rasul ﷺ was alive, there is Quran revealed to tell them, you did this right, this is wrong. After that, there was no Quran revealed. Everybody is doing their best to seek the truth. So it is Islam, and Islam was meant to be, first of all, even in the same, forget about different cultures. Two people raised in the same house and twin. Islam, there is a room in Islam for them to have different interpretations and different priorities or different focus. That's the nature of the religion. It doesn't mean one of them is going to pray 4 times or one of them is going to fast in December rather than Ramadan. These are things that are fixed. These are the things that do not change. But other than that, what is the best way to fulfill my mission? Given my resources, my ability, my circumstances, etc., this can be different from one person to another, and from one culture to another, from one context. What should be our priorities? There are countries in which people are living under oppressive, dictatorial, corrupt regimes. Their top priority is freedom and justice. You are in a country that guarantees those freedom. So you can't have the same priority. And there are third people who live under occupation. So it is mostly how we can achieve the ultimate purposes of Islam, which is the purpose of Allah, and how we can fulfill our mission. That's where we have plenty of room for ijtihad. It's not in Salah It's not in fasting, it's not in Hajj or in Zakat or wudu, etc. These are things that are constant. They do not change from one time to another. See if anybody else has any questions or so that people don't think that, yes.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
Well, I just want to add a comment, which is
Sure.
this sects, or I would say not sects, the school of fiqh, not school of thoughts. School of thoughts are different. School of fiqh is maybe the more proper naming for these schools like Shafi'i, Abu Hanifa, or Imam Malik, or these. But my notice is when Muslim civilization is really high, when we were in the golden age of Islamic civilization, although it has some issues at that time, but schools of fiqh, it was a lot, not only 4 or 7 or 6, it was maybe 16, or there was no limitations in that, because there is lots of mujtahideen, mujtahideen, and there is a lot of different school. The rational school of thought was there, and people won't just limit themselves by these by Shafi'i or Imam Ahmad or Imam Layth ibn Sa'd or Imam Al-Qadi Abd al-Jabbar al-Mu'tazili. No, it was, I mean, people will live their life and produce things to benefit everybody else. So Islamic civilization was like the source of ma'rifah, of benefit, of every good thing to life. So people wouldn't be just put in break before every move. And what Imam Shafi'i said or what Imam Abu Hanifa. This is kind of freezing us or preventing us from moving forward. So this is just a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of you are religious and you are close to Allah. If you are close to Allah, go to the Islam, to real Islam, which is in the Quran and in the clear Sunnah of Rasulullah, and activate Islam in life. But going back to somebody who lived 1200 years ago, or maybe 800 years ago, like Imam al-Ghazali or somebody, or Ibn Rushd, and limit yourself by his way of thinking and his rules. Well, his rules is not Sharia, is not his rules is not wahi, is not from Allah. That was his own understanding. But if we limit us, restrict ourselves to somebody who lived 800 years ago, then we will live his life, not our life. Then our solutions to this life will be lacking because we are not up to date. We are actually lacking behind, and that maybe explain the problems that Muslims are living on these days.
Yeah, that's what I used recently when I was asked this similar question. I said, when you take a class in the syllabus, the professor will have textbook that is required, and they have supplemental reading that are recommended, papers and other books, etc. Muslims normally, for them, it's the Quran and the authentic Sunnah that's the textbook. Everything else is supplementary reading. Now we turn things upside down. Nowadays we have the books of Turath, or the heritage, that became the textbook. And the Quran and the Hadith became just for us to read and memorize, not to study or to reflect or contemplate. That's a huge mistake. It's a crime. It's not even a mistake. So we need to bring things back in order, which is every generation of Muslims, they have to do their work. And they should not be lazy or afraid, so that they say, because we are afraid of bid'ah or deviation, or because we're lazy, or because of both, let's just go and take those books and translate them into English here. And then if you are to Spanish in Latin America and wherever you go, just take those books and translate them, and that's good enough. Out of that idea, of the Salafi idea, which is dominating, that says that basically whatever the Salaf have produced is good enough for us till the day of judgment, everywhere and every time. And why? Because they are more pious and they are closer to the Prophet, and there is a hadith, they rely on it, that every generation is better than the one after. So, and because we are way downstream, we are people who are corrupt, and if we turn our minds on, we're going to produce things that are bad. So the better way is to freeze our minds and then just read those books and memorize them and rely on them completely. That's what brought us to this point. Believe it or not, is this key idea that freezing ijtihad because it's not needed and relying on the Salaf work because they are more pious and closer, more knowledgeable, and stop and freeze our minds because we are corrupt generations, and if we turn those minds on, they will backfire. That's what brought us to this point. And this has to be thrown away, all of it, and then come back to that Allah preserved the text and assigned us the task and the duty to contextualize it in our reality. And there is no way around this unless you want to cheat. You know, cheating meaning copying. That's what we're doing, by the way. Now, rather than doing our homework, we are cheating. We are copying the work of somebody else. Why? Again, for that idea and the Salafi idea, the fact that we are afraid of coming up with the wrong thing or deviating from Islam, the fact that we are lazy intellectually. I read somebody said minds like the bodies. If you keep them at rest for a long time, they deteriorate. You know, if you stop moving, what happens to your body? They say that the same thing happens to your mind if you stop using it. If you're not thinking, that's what happens to your like the health deteriorate, your intellectual health also deteriorates. So it is long overdue to accept that reality. It's never too late. That Muslim Americans have the job to produce, to contextualize the original Islam, decoupled from the culture, from any culture, contextualize it in America to produce unique, indigenous version of Islam, indigenous version or Muslim personality. It's a Muslim American personality, Muslim American family, Muslim American community will be different than Muslims elsewhere. And there is nothing wrong with this. As long the thawabit, the things that are constant, we do them the same way, then we need to take advantage. We must take advantage of the flexibility in Islam so that we can turn it into wherever we go, we turn it into indigenous religion, not a foreign one.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Can I have a question?
Sure.
I have noticed recently it has become very fashionable in America to say I'm not a Shia or I'm not a Sunni, I'm a Muslim. But in many occasions, when these brothers have told me that I'm not a Shia or I'm not a Sunni, I ask them, would you please, in plain English words, like maybe in 2-3 minutes, explain to me both the school of thoughts, like the Sunni school of thought and the Shia school of thought, and where, they agree with each other and where they collide against each other. Unfortunately, they are struggling for words. They don't even know what to say. And I have realized that one of the main reasons is that, generally speaking, Muslims, they just want to keep everything in hiding and sweep the problems under the carpet. So basically saying, I'm not a Shia, and I'm not a Muslim, I'm a Sunni, I'm a Muslim. And instead of this, creating a path for the future, it makes things even more complicated, and especially if you're a young boy or girl who comes from a Muslim family in America. Sometimes they just decide to leave the whole religion because they say, nobody's telling me the truth. I just want to see, like, is there any way, like, if we could teach, like, what shall we tell a person? What is Shia? What is Sunni? And why you're not none of them? And why you're a Muslim? And also, if time permits, in a few simple words, I would like to see what is the difference between the Shia school of thought in fiqh, and also the four Sunni school of thoughts. Thank you. That's all.
Jazakallah khair. First of all, I think that's a good sign. I wish that one day we become all identify as Muslims and focus on what is common between us, and then not focus on the differences, whether it is between Sunni and Shia or between different madhahib or different jama'at, etc. Because divisions are going crazy. There is Sunni and Shia, and there is Ikhwan and Salaf and Tahrir, and there is Maliki and Shafi'i, and it's endless division. It's endless division. So I think if it is done the right way, that's a good sign that I'm a Muslim, and whatever fiqh I'm following, it's up to me. I mean, it's not your business, basically. It's I don't want to focus on that. That's if it is done right, that's a good, that's a positive sign. Of course, if it means that I don't care about religion, that becomes bad, and that's a trend that is increasing in the Muslim world nowadays, and probably the worst. We have seen a wave of extremism and going to terrorism, but now we're seeing a wave of atheism, of people who say, I don't care. It's not like I don't believe in Allah. No. It's not the atheism of the 60s and 70s or 50s, whatever, when they say, I'm a communist, I'm atheist, I don't believe in God. No. The wave that is more dangerous now is I don't care. So people have no clue and they don't care about religion. So that's probably, we went again from a wave of ISIS and etc. start attracting young people because there is a void, there is a vacuum. And طبيعة تأبى الفراغ, vacuum will not last. Somebody has to fill it. Somebody will fill it. So when we fail to produce a convincing, inspiring version of Islam that empower these young people and add value to their lives, and they see the benefit of it, they see the happiness that will bring to them, the success that will bring, the ambition, the high aspiration, the motivation, the self-development. When we fail to do that, to produce this version of Islam and sell it to these generations, we left a void, because the one that we have, it's not attractive. I mean, you're trying to sell a religion that was mixed with a foreign culture to a young boy or girl who's born and raised here. That doesn't make sense. When they take it and they go in their school or college or work, it does not help them functioning. It will isolate them. And it will create a barrier and create a tension inside, etc. That's why a lot of them say, okay, I don't want this. This is crippling me. This is creating stress and tension and etc. even though it was meant to be exactly the opposite. It was meant to be inspiring, empowering, guaranteeing for you peace of mind, tranquility, happiness in this life, even before the hereafter. So we had that, and now, because that basically is not attractive, is not as attractive as it used to be, those ISIS and Nusra and others. So now we have and Qaeda. Now we have this another wave. So this wave of I don't care about religion. So it is a good sign. The roots of Sunnah and Shia was political. Originally, it was a political issue that was turned into religious. There was no Sunnah and Shia at the time of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There was no Sunnah until he died. There was no Sunnah and Shia. It was originally a political problem, political division, that later on turned into sectarian or sects. Now the main difference is in this imama concept versus khilafa or whatever, meaning that the Aimma are decided and determined. There is a chain. That's what the Shia believe. And between the concept of Muslim, they can choose their leader at any time. And the fact that the Imam is infallible or masoom. And then, of course, the last addition was this Wali al-Faqih or Wilayat al-Faqih. That's the main, probably, key difference. Other than that, there are some fiqh issues or fiqh differences. They exist even among the Sunni people who follow different madhab. If you see a Maliki and a Hanbali, you can see a lot of differences, or a Hanafi and Hanbali or Hanafi. And you can see a Shafi'i, you can see a lot of differences. The differences in fiqh with the Shia are not much bigger or much when it comes, but that main issue, the original political issue between that started with Ali and Muawiyah, and then, of course, Hussein, etc. So I wish one day we can go beyond this, and then we start identifying ourselves as a human being. Let's not divide the world into Muslims and non-Muslims, and then as a fellow citizens who live in the same place, and then after that, as Muslims, if we are Muslims in a community, and after that, different people will follow different fatwa and different madahib. And we accept each other and respect each other and forget about this judgment and forget about this idea that what I have is the truth, what I have is Islam, and if you differ with me, then you are in trouble. No, what you have is your understanding of Islam or your interpretation of Islam, and it is my interpretation versus your interpretation. And as long none of us violates key aqidah issue, we don't, or things that are not negotiable or are not flexible, as long nobody says that salah, I'm not sure is farad, or alcohol, drinking, I'm not sure is haram, as long we don't get there, as long we don't touch that, and even if we do, I mean, even if somebody chose to do that, they're still a human being and your fellow citizen, and leave them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not your job to judge them or to do anything to them. It's your job is to represent Islam in the best possible way and to give the nasiha or advice and maw'ida hasana, to articulate it in the best possible way when you have a chance. And if the person is close to you and you have a relationship, is to give advice and move on. I'm gonna have to remove completely this judgmental attitude of putting yourself in the at the seat, taking the seat of a judge, and start judging people. Who is a Muslim? Who is a Kafir? Who's gonna go to Jannah, heaven, and who's gonna go to hell. Who's the good Muslim? Who's the bad Muslim? Who's with us? Who's against us? We're going to have to forget about this. Just mind your business. You have a job to fulfill in this life. Fulfill it to the best of your ability. Part of that job is to help others, to help them becoming better version of themselves, and to help and to convey the message of Islam to them in the best possible way, starting by example first. That's your job. And it ends there. وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ. You understood that Islam is universal religion that was sent to you like it was sent to me. You know what it is. You know what Allah, who created this universe, and what He expects from you, etc. And you know the consequences. Then it is between you and Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ. إِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغِ. The Quran, wallahi, is so clear. I don't know where our minds went, that your job ends in delivering the message. Exclusively, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that hisab is for Him. إِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغِ وَعَلَيْنَا الْحِسَابِ. Very foundational verse that makes the job of the Prophet. أَفَأَنْتَ تُكْرِهُ النَّاسَ حَتَّى يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ وَمَا أَنْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُصَيْطِرٍ. It's so clear that your job and responsibility ends in delivering Islam, the message of Islam, in the best possible way. And then all the Quran was meant for people to know what are the consequences, why it's better for them to follow, to obey Allah. It's better for them in this life and in the hereafter. That's why the Quran is full of these verses that encourage people to believe and discourage them from disbelief. Why? And you are meant to convey that, not to take the job, the role of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No. To convey, this is what it is, that are the consequences. These are the consequences if you choose to believe. These are the consequences if you choose not to believe. ألا هل بلغت? As the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Allahumma fashhad. Did I convey the message? You got it? I got it. I chose not to take it. Okay, that's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Dr. Ganucci, before we go, can you please in few words tell us what is Aqidah, which everybody, all Muslims, believe in?
We complicate. Aqidah, believe in Allah, believe in the oneness of Allah, believe in His names and attributes, believe that nothing is like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, we can make it very simple. It is their relationship, your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It includes love, it includes gratitude, it includes dependence, it includes fear, it includes hope, it includes all of these. It's our dimensions, aspect of your relationship with Allah. The aqidah that we made it into things that are very complex that nobody understands, it's simply the belief in Allah and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And mainly that Allah is the creator of, the Lord of the worlds, the creator of everything, the disposer of all affairs. Nothing happens without His will or against His will. And then the creator, and then nothing is like Him. So you can't put it in something that you can envision. Anytime you try to envision that, you need to resist that temptations, because لا تدركه الأبصار ليس كمثله شيء. There is nothing like Him.
Jazakallah kulla khair.
Inshallah. جزاكم الله خير. Inshallah. We'll see you next Sunday. Inshallah.
السلام عليكم.
جزاك الله خير. وعليكم السلام.